In 2025, I built a lot of different bases in ARK Survival Ascended. Of course, we started the year on Extinction. We went to Astraeos with plenty of new updates there. We finally got Ragnarok, Valguero, and of course Lost Colony. And I built everything from modern and futuristic bases, villas, breeding facilities, A-frames, to many towns and villages, including Greek, medieval, Viking, of course. We did some mod releases for new custom cosmetics, which were really cool to try out and get the builds to you early. And of course, we built plenty of castle. We dove into the world of Jurassic Park with a bunch of builds there. We built some bunkers. We, of course, had some specific breeding pens for Rexes, Raptors, Gigantoraptors, Elderclaws, Bison, you name it. And a bunch of different builds from all sorts of different styles. Hello there, survivors, and welcome back to another video in ARK Survival Ascended. Today we're going to take a look at all of my best builds in 2025, and as I said, we have built a bunch of different things. Now, in case you haven't seen all of these videos, this is a good way to catch up with all of the different builds that I made last year. And of course, if you're interested in any of these, most if not all of them will at least have some kind of showcase videos or tutorials available, or even the full live streams where I build them. So take a look on the channel, check out the playlist if there's any build that catches your interest. And of course, if you like seeing these types of builds and you want to continue to see more, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really do appreciate all the support. And of course, there will be plenty of more awesome builds in 2026. Also, definitely feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds you'd like to see, or maybe let me know what your favorite build was that I made in 2025. We're starting off big with a giant modern breeding facility that I built on the beaches of Astraeos, featuring two big halls to the sides where you can do plenty of breeding, and of course some rooftops for even more space available, and the big tower in the middle with multiple layers where you could do your breeding, but also enough room to make a little base in case you want to use this as the full-time base at the same time. Of course, utilizing sleek modern design with this nice white aesthetic, a little bit of the black in there, and of course, plenty of nice and big windows. Also on Astraeos, I built this futuristic looking villa based on some pictures I found, I think on Pinterest or Google, of a real life villa with a nice pool in the front and some really different shapes than most of the other modern builds that I'd done up to that point. I really tried to step away from the A-frames that I built a lot of the times and build something completely new, and I think this base definitely offers a bunch of cool space and plenty of different rooms for all of your needs on an ARK playthrough. Speaking of A-frames, of course, there is one on the list once again. I'm actually really happy still with this modern mountain A-frame design, trying to change up the A-frame a little bit by making the beams stick out a little bit more on both sides, you know, incorporating both the dino pen at the bottom as of course the main A-frame as the top of the build. So this build offers you the dino pen for your breeding needs, plenty of space of course in the A-frame for your crafting, your storage, and of course your own bedroom, but also a built-in greenhouse so that you have everything you need. Stepping away from the modern builds for a second to look at this all-in-one castle that I built using the Castle Craft custom cosmetic. One of my bigger builds on Ragnarok to celebrate of course the map's theme, fitting these types of castles for sure. And if you're looking for a bigger base but you don't want to go the modern route, this is definitely a very good option, and I'm still very happy with the way this castle came out. It is a castle that I saw myself in Belgium this year, and I really got inspired to do something like this. And I especially like all the little details and all the little different parts of this build, from the round tower to the contrasting square tower to the little cemetery for your fallen tames, and also the differences between the main keep building and the main house that is right next to it. I think there's a lot of nice little features to this base, and definitely a proper castle to call home. I started the year with some big snow ruins on Extinction, rebuilding them to the ultimate big breeding base with plenty of space on the inside, obviously, because these ruins are already pretty big if you just rebuild them. But I also decided for some reason to add even more on top of it, getting some A-frames in there, making for a really cool bunker / modern laboratory breeding facility, which still is one of my favorites, and yeah, definitely a base with all of the space for your breeding projects. I also built this Viking Village, working together for the Viking Builders custom cosmetic release with a more traditional, small, simple Viking hall, as well as the more detailed house that I built here. And of course, the giant longhouse that was based on the one from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which definitely offers you everything you could ever need in a base, because that thing is very, very big. But yeah, again, very fun this year to work on some custom cosmetic releases with the mod makers and getting early access to test them and already get some builds done for release. And of course, I was always going to do Viking builds anyway on Ragnarok, so this was a win-win. I also dived into the world of Jurassic Park again, and I built the visitor center from the original Jurassic Park movie, and this definitely turned out to be a really cool base. I really like the way that the shape came together. It's a little bit tricky to get some of these shapes, of course, to exist in ARK without going too much into clipping structures and, you know, making some weird changes that way. But I think this one definitely catches the right vibe and atmosphere from those buildings we know from the movie. And I in fact also built a ruined version of this that we see in later movies, which is also quite cool, leaning more into it being totally overgrown. Another custom cosmetic release this year was the Golden Dynasty cosmetic, and I built this golden temple for release, and still is one of my favorite cosmetics to use, and I still really also like this base. The cosmetic adds a lot of detailed structures as well as almost every utility that is available in the base game. And yeah, you can definitely build some really cool things with this. As you can see here, this base itself also offers a beautiful little garden in the front with some of the other cosmetics from the same mod maker, like the sculptures catalog, which adds a bunch of different statues that you can use to bring some extra details to your base. I also built a Shipwreck pirate base, which soon might become even more relevant because it looks like we're gonna get some pirate themed things coming to us with the release of Genesis 1. So very excited to see that. For someone that hasn't really built any boats or ships or anything in ARK so far, I don't know why I decided my first ship should be one upside down, shipwrecked and turned into a base, but I still think this is a pretty cool thematic base with a decent amount of space for you to use too, and might be very useful once we set sail on Genesis this year. I also built this Rex Breeding Pen with, of course, heavy influences from Jurassic Park, making sure that you had a secure facility for all of your Rexes, and of course plenty of space to do some proper breeding on them, and even offering a little home right on top that you could use as a little base while working on all your breeding. I also built this steampunk base on Extinction, and it was actually really refreshing to build something in the steampunk style using the cosmetics, of course, that we got with Aberration, but then in the clear daylight, so we can fully appreciate all the lovely details they have to offer. And this base was actually really fun to work on, getting all the crazy shapes together as you do in proper steampunk style, and I still really like the way this one turned out. Definitely gives me some strong steampunk vibes, especially of course using all those little extra windmills as additional details, but even without it, it's still a pretty cool base to use. And then one of my biggest passion projects of this year, which was the ultimate bunker base, and I think it definitely shows that I put a lot of time, passion and love into this one. The original was actually built during the Jurassic Park event that I hosted for my community. We lived in this cave and I love this location so much that afterwards I built this base on my community servers, which offers offers plenty of space on the inside, lots of different dino parking and breeding opportunities, even for the biggest creatures like gigas and carcas, and we have some bigger spidos too. And of course, all of my crafting and storage needs, and my main base location where I can sort all of my things in order in this awesome cave bunker. On Valguero with the giant redwoods, I felt like it was time for another nice log cabin build, and I'm really happy with the way this one turned out. I really spent a lot of time making sure that every angle of the build had some cool details to look at, and I think that shows in the final design. There's little things to look at and different things to break up all the walls on every side, making for a very interesting looking base, offering some smaller stables on the outside as well as a bigger dino pen on the inside at the bottom layer, but still plenty of room up top in the actual log cabin itself, and of course plenty of cozy vibes that you come to expect from a log cabin like this. And then a very recent build, of course, on Lost Colony was this big Gothic tower base that I rebuilt into its former glory, which turned out to be a very big project indeed, because this is such a big location with plenty of space for all of your breeding needs. It has, of course, a crafting hall and storage etc. available. It even has a greenhouse, but the majority of it is definitely aimed for breeders, because this location offers so much space that it is the perfect place to do this, because even the bigger creatures will easily fit inside and you will easily be able to breed a bunch of them. Even a cloning chamber looks small in this build. I built a lot on Astraeos this year, of course, and of course it had to include a town build with a bunch of different Greek style builds, from villas to stables to a simple starter house to the warehouse, some awesome shrines and temples, and even the bigger dino pens too. This has really been a very fun project to work on, definitely one that I kind of want to finish up in the next year as well when we return to Astraeos, just making sure that this town is completed. But definitely still one of my favorite cosmetics to use, because it fits the map so perfectly and it's a really fun style to build in. I also hosted a Western event this year, and for that event I built this Bandit Hideout on Scorched Earth, hidden in one of the existing caves there, which is actually a really cool location, and I'm still very proud of the little build that I managed to do in here, building like a little hidden town in this cave, which definitely makes for a really cool build location. Maybe not the most practical, although it did have plenty of space on the inside for all of your basic survival needs. This was also the year that CKF Castle, Keeps and Forts was released for ARK Survival Ascended, and I did a bunch of different builds with this one, but the main one of course was the CKF Town, which started as a village on my Astraeos map, with the one side being all of the builds that I did by myself, bunch of cool different townhouse designs, as well as an apiary and a farm. And on the other side of the river, it started a new tradition, which was the Shark Build Club, as we named it, to do some time lapses there with me and a bunch of builders from my community to get a lot more builds done in a short amount of time, resulting in some very cool builds already, and definitely something we probably should continue soon again. Fast forwarding all the way to Valguero, I built this modern lakeside base, which still is one of my favorites. Again, it holds a decent amount of space in the basement, but the coolest feature of this base is the big windows that you can actually open with a keypad, which is a really cool feature because you can have huge window walls, and with one press of the button you can open them so you can still access your balconies and take off on your flyers. The next up, which started as I want to build another Hagrid hut kind of build, but turned into something a little bit bigger, and is the ultimate all-in-one forest hut base, which you could definitely use early on in your playthrough. Obviously not all of the bigger creatures are going to fit in here, but early on you should be able to fit most of all of your crafting and storage needs, as well as some of your early game tames safely inside, so you don't need to worry about it. And it has that little greenhouse attached to it, so you can do pretty much all you need. And all the way at the top you actually have some room to park your flyers as well. I also built Neuschwanstein Castle this year, which is a real-life castle in Germany, which I've been to a few times, and it was a really fun project trying to bring this to ARK using CKF, and it's actually the community center of my Ragnarok community server, so you could actually come and visit this base itself. Therefore, it doesn't really have too much of the interiors designed. It is more meant for the community to go to, do some crafting if they are early on and they don't have crafting set up themselves yet, or of course to see if there's any dinos that people have left for them to take on their adventure, to have a little bit of help to start their adventures. Definitely was a really cool project to work on, and I'm really proud of the end result. Diving back into Jurassic Park, I also built the original Raptor Paddock from the first movie, and I think it came out pretty well. I also made a version for vanilla without any cosmetics, but of course with the bunker structure cosmetic skins, they definitely feels very much like the one from the movies, because these skins are definitely aimed to get that same kind of feeling. With the launch of Ragnarok, of course, the Bison arrived, and I was really obsessed with this creature at launch. So, of course, I instantly designed some nice Bison Stables where you can house plenty of them, do your breeding, and get this really cool stables ready for your own little cowboy ranch. I also did plenty of fantasy builds this year, including the House of Beorn, based on the Hobbit movies, and I actually still really love this build. It has a big stables on the inside, of course, as it should for the House of Beorn, with plenty of space inside to have a bunch of your tames in there. Even some flyers you can park up on the second layer, and of course plenty of room for some crafting as well, and a cozy bedroom. But definitely some really cool vibes for any Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit fan. I also did a bunch of different Japanese builds in the Blossom Biome on Astraeos, and this was actually around the time when we got all of the new build pieces added to the game. The half pillars, the quarter roof pieces allowed for so much extra potential in builds, and of course we got a bunch of extra thatch pieces at the same time. So these builds were really aimed to explore all of those new options that were now available, and it's really cool to see these types of builds being totally possible without needing any mods at all, just the base game pieces, and of course some of the official skins to have a little bit of variety. But definitely showcases how much power paint can have on your builds. If applied well, you can totally transform it to something completely new. And speaking of fantasy builds, I also built this Elven Treehouse on Ragnarok, based of course on the designs from Lothlorien, from the Lord of the Rings, and this was another really fun project to work on. I had been wanting to do an Elven Treehouse for so long, and I finally got around to designing one, and again it utilizes just vanilla structures and showing the power of painting those structures to get totally different looks and totally different magical vibes. I also built another modern tech base, actually one with the Tek Bunker inside, so you could combine the two. But this was also trying to play around with all of the new build pieces we had gotten this year, to see some different shapes that are now possible with the different angles of slope walls that we have available, and transforming that into a very cool modern looking shape that still offers everything you would want from a proper late game base, and of course with the added bonus that if you add the Tek Bunker inside, you have even more space underground. I also built this Elderclaw Sanctuary on Valguero, which basically is a giant greenhouse. Unfortunately, with the way that ARK works, of course only the top layer actually offers you the full effectiveness of a greenhouse, so that you can grow all your crops and of course hatch your elder claws. But the bottom also offers plenty of space for some crafting, as well as of course to hold some of your beautiful Elderclaw tames. Since I went hiking this summer in the Alps again, as I usually do, I wanted to build an Alpine Lodge this year, and I definitely think I came pretty close to the lodges that I usually see on my hikes, offering a very cozy home for all of your ARK adventures. Of course, the sanctuary on Extinction offers for plenty rooftops that you could build your base at, so I of course designed a modern rooftop base, utilizing actually a cliff platform as the base shape for this build. So a very cool and circular build that you could both build on top of a cliff platform, because well, you have the right shape right away, or you could just build it as a circular base anywhere else. With the release of Extinction, we not only got the ability to place cellar doors the normal way, but also have them standing up as either hangar or barn doors. So of course, I had to design another western looking barn, a typical red barn, using those new barn doors as an entryway. And it definitely gives you some new opportunities to build big barns that can hold most of your tames without having to go immediately for the behemoth gate, which instantly turns any building into a massive project, because a lot of tames can already fit through the large cellar door or the behemoth cellar door, both of which are way smaller than an actual behemoth gate. A new project that I've been working on together with my tribe mates on Extinction has been a Cyberpunk City, removing our old base and turning it into a proper cityscape with plenty of neon lights, little alleyways, and definitely a bunch of different layers to get those cyberpunk themes going. Which isn't quite finished yet, but hopefully we will do that this year. Another cosmetic release this year was the Astral Custom Cosmetics, and I built this modular space base on Valguero, making sure that you could build this part by part. So you could start out with the smaller outpost, and then as you see fit, add either the greenhouse edition or go for the full space station with room for your tames and plenty of space for all of your bigger crafting stations, as well as a tribe tower looking like a satellite right on top of it. And I also included a space breeding hangar next door for if you needed even more space for all of your breeding projects. Then the main project I've been working on Valguero was this little Rohan / Viking themed village, doing a bunch of different builds, trying to show you how to build them without any cosmetics, and of course how to transform them to the next level using the Viking builder skins. Having a bunch of different simple houses to a Deinonychus stable in the same style, as well as the Golden Hall from the Lord of the Rings as the final base. That is definitely a really cool vibe if you like this theme. And there's also even more bunkers. I built this bunker satellite tower, kind of based on some of the radio tower bunkers that we see in the Jurassic Park franchise, offering you a decent amount of space on the inside, maybe for a getaway car, or of course just your crafting needs, and some diners on the inside. And again, a tribe tower on the very top that looks like a satellite, and this one actually spins around, which is a really cool feature. I also built this fire lookout tower, which is still one of my favorites, and you can either use this as an early game starter base, but also definitely serves as a really good outpost if you want to have a presence in different biomes, for example, maybe as some kind of respawn point, or maybe to refill your ammunitions if you're going on longer adventures and you want to make sure that your little outposts are very easy to spot. With the launch of Ragnarok, I also built this griffin nest, which I tried to make look as much as a nest as possible, with the little downside that it is a little bit prickly on some sides with all of the spikes that are involved, but definitely gives you a lot of space on top of this cliff platform for all of your griffins and breeding projects that you want to do with them now that they are breedable. And staying on Ragnarok, I also rebuilt the Redwood Castle ruins into a proper castle, with of course restoring the gates, adding some buildings, and building a main keep so that you had plenty of space to use this as your base. Unfortunately, it turns out that for many people this location isn't buildable. I think it's down to some settings with the drops that are normally arriving there, which was a little bit sad, but I still think it came out as a pretty cool build, which hopefully can still inspire you even if you can't build at the exact same location. I also built this overgrown bunker base. This was actually the first time that I used these brand new bunker custom cosmetics, trying to fill them out, and it's definitely a really cool one because it has so many different options, especially for the walls, with a bunch of different window designs to keep those really cool bunker vibes but still allow enough of the fresh light into your base. Back on the Western event, I also added a train station eventually on the outside of my bandit base. Maybe wasn't properly hidden anymore at that point, but it definitely added some really cool Western vibes, and I just can't get enough of this build style. I also built this snowy log cabin in the snow dome on Extinction, housing some cozy vibes to bring that to this map, because especially along this little stream running down into the middle of the dome, it's just some really nice views and some really nice snowy vibes, so I couldn't resist just building a little cabin there. And for the Flora Moderna custom cosmetic release, I built this little modern street with some different houses. The traditional brick house, which is definitely one of the strengths of this cosmetic, as well as the slightly more modern looking house right next to it, using a lot of the contrast from the black and white combos with some really cool window options here that are available in the cosmetics, and of course plenty of decorations all around it, from different statues to the little cars, phone boxes, and all the little food stands too, to bring some proper lives to your streets. And then back to Lost Colony, where I very recently, of course, built this Chinese little starter base with a nice and simple house to live in, with your basic crafting and storage needs for the early game, as well as a little simple stables right next to it to breed your Valguero and park your Solwyn. Moving on to another tribe base that I worked on this year with my tribe on my community server, rebuilding Helm's Deep to its former glory, with each member building his own little house within the castle walls, working on restoring the main gate entrance, and of course the big crafting hall all the way at the back. Definitely a really cool place to use as a base, and it was a really fun project. Again, having some of these Rohan/Viking themes built in there, which definitely really helped, of course, with the Viking builders cosmetic. Then I finally made a raft build this year, a nice little raft, turning that into a little ship. And I also made a full little boathouse base for your early game playthrough. It's a nice base to build on the beaches, and of course perfect to combine with the little raft like this, giving you both options to build it without any mods, just using the base game wood as well as a little bit of the frontier textures, or going all out with the cozy cabins cosmetic, transforming this boathouse into some truly cozy vibes. I also built a Megaraptor pen, which was kind of like a fighting pit, because of course that fits the Megaraptor quite well, but it also, more importantly, of course, offers a bunch of space so that you can do some proper Megaraptor breeding in this pit using the Wasteland skin from the Bob Tall Tales DLC, which was a nice change because it's one of the skins that I don't really use that often because it has quite a strong theme, but it definitely fit the vibe for this build. And of course, recently we started out on Lost Colony with a little starter base workshop, making sure you have a little work area on the outside for your early game crafting and smelting, with a decent amount of space in the inside of the base, and of course some cozy bedrooms to fill with the new pet displays. I also built this Architect Structures Remastered A-Frame, which is of course using the modded pieces to get a lot closer to what a real-life A-Frame would look like, with the much steeper roofs, which is still a shame that we haven't gotten those in the base game. I was kind of holding out hope that maybe they would add them for Lost Colony, since the steep roofs also fit very well for a Gothic theme, but unfortunately we'll have to wait a little bit longer and still pray that they'll come someday. But in the meantime, ASR definitely offers a bunch of extra build pieces that fit very nicely with the normal vanilla pieces, to just give you a little bit of extra options that can really transform the way you build, because as you can see, you need a much smaller footprint to get a pretty nice and high A-frame. Then we have a few more Lost Colony builds to end it with. I also built this dark Gothic church using the Lost Colony structures as well as the Dwarven Builder skin to get some of those stained glass windows, because that was one of the main things that I really missed with this skin from Lost Colony, as well as that the fact is that the Lost Colony skin is quite busy, so if you do a whole build with it, especially a little bit of a bigger build, it does get quite busy. Luckily, changing the variations, of course, it makes sure that you can have a little bit more control over what you see both on the inside and on the outside. But yeah, definitely a very fitting build for this dark vampire Gothic map. And then finally, for Winter Wonderland, we got the surprise of a brand new cosmetic set that was one of the rewards that you can unlock in the event. And of course, I had to build a little gingerbread house using these new cosmetics, which definitely have a lot of detail, tons of variations and options, which is amazing if you want to celebrate the holidays in the proper way. So if you didn't get a chance to unlock it this year, definitely look forward to do that next year. Or I guess this year, because we're watching this in the new year already. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. And as I said at the start, if any of these builds interest you, feel free to check out my channel, the tutorial playlist, the build showcase playlist, to find out more about any of these builds so you can spend a little bit more details or start building one of them yourselves for your next ARK adventure. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, if you enjoy seeing these types of builds, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next video or the next stream. For now, goodbye.